I was ostracized completely, completely ostracized. It was really awful. And this is the fucked thing about when people leave AA is there's no way for them to connect with each other, and it's so incredibly isolating. I wish we could just tell a newcomer, hey, we're going to try to indoctrinate you, and you're going to live in basically a constant ocean of shame and self-flagellation because you're never going to really do enough because what I'm going to ask of you is totally unreasonable. I wish that we didn't groom newcomers the way that we do. And, little by little, right? And then we raise the bar, and we raise the bar, and we raise the bar. These people come with trauma. How am I making somebody write a four-step down and tell me? I'm not a professional. The things that we've heard in four steps, I am not qualified. It's astounding.
Hello and welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. I am super excited you're here today for a great episode with the one and only Lilly, who I actually know from the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Welcome, Lilly.
Good morning. It's so nice to
Hi,
see you.
Lilly. No, just
Hi.
kidding.
Oh my God. Wow, I haven't even thought about how I haven't heard that in years. That's so wild. Yeah.
I feel like sometimes it's fun to have a little humor around it all because it can also be a little painful to look at some aspects of it in hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have, there's so much humor in the rooms, and that's one of the most beautiful things about it. And like sort of seductive, I think, if you're someone like me who's like tends to perform, you know, like so much of my time in AA was spent just like cracking jokes or making fun of myself. And
Totally.
yeah, the laughter is such a dopamine loop. Like it is. It's very enjoyable. Yeah.
Give us an idea just from this, like for context, of about how long you were in AA and when did you leave? I'm actually quite curious about this personally.
Yeah. Um, I went to my first meeting when I was, I think, 19. 19. And I left in the beginning of 2023. I didn't even mean to leave. I just didn't go anymore. There was a moment I'd gone home to Australia and after a few years because of COVID. And when I went home, everybody was fine. Nobody is sitting in a basement, constantly raking themselves over the coals, trying to reach this state of spiritual perfection. So I got back to Oakland, went to a meeting, sat in that room, and I just had this feeling of like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. Oh, can we swear?
Be
Okay,
yourself.
okay, great. Um, and that was it. That was it. I think I might have gone to one meeting since then, and that, yeah, that's it.
Was there a moment after you left where you started reflecting on AA and seeing it in a new light?
I have done this years ago. So this was not the first time I had left AA. I'd come in and out so quite a lot of times. Even the first year that I spent in AA in San Francisco, um, I never, what's the term? Red pill? I never really, I'm just too fucking smart. And so many of us are. But I was never really able to stamp out the understanding that there was something in this that you had to take hook, line, and sinker. And I never quite did, even though it looked like I was completely bought in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had left. After my first year, I'd left. I was like, I'm going to do this for 1 year. And then I got right to 1 year and I announced at a meeting that I was leaving AA. And I was like, I don't think any of you are really happy and I'm not going to do this anymore. And I quit my secretary position and everybody like swarmed me. They were like, what do you do? I'm like, no, this literally sucks. Like, and then I drank and had a disaster and came back and spent more years in and did it perfectly, right? And got married to the king of AA and, um, completely transformed my life. I became a pillar of society in the program. Um, I got like AA famous. And then again, like a few years later, I left again. And this time it was in a really dark period of time for me. Mentally, I was not well. And I left, but it was very emotionally violent. It was, I drank, I did the very, very wrong thing that you do, which is like you turn around and drink one night in a fury. And it was almost as though I was doing the thing that they told me I was going to do as some self-fulfilling prophecy of the and then I was ostracized completely ostracized. I had, this big group of girls, and I'd seen other friends go out and had gone to their aid. Nobody did that with me. I was just completely disbarred. And it was really awful. And so after that time I left, I got really angry and I went down the whole is AA a cult thing? Is this, you know, the AA dogma and how to deprogram? And I read research on it and I read, books and articles and looked at different methodologies, and programs for sobriety, and really educated myself on the two perspectives, knowing AA's approach so well. Um, so I've already filled my head with, a knowledge of how we are programmed, how 1D programs, how AA works to program people. And when I came back again, I did it very differently. But you can't unknow that. So I would
Yeah.
sit in meetings being like, well, I'm not going to die. I'm not. I'm not actually. I might drink and be really sad, but nah, I'm not going to die. And my secrets aren't going to keep me safe. Actually, sorry, just privacy. I'm not going to tell you everything. So I just did things very differently in a way that worked for me. And I think that made it easier to leave this last time because I was like, I've been doing this my own way anyway. I've been doing mushrooms in the room. So I have been, treating myself with the help of people outside the rooms or inside the rooms very differently to the way that the rules state we should behave. So that's a long answer to I left many times. This last time wasn't a big shock because I'd done that, you know, before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds like at the end you were 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Meaning you were in, but you weren't like in the ideology. You were literally taking what you wanted and leaving the rest.
100%. And I would say, that's exactly right. I just was like, well, I'm really going to do that then. But I was still going to meetings. I was still sponsoring up until like the last year I was in AA. Probably was still sponsoring women, still working steps, still going to meetings in Oakland, still friends with all my closest friends were still in AA. But yeah, but privately I had not, I was also in Alanon for a very long time. So, I chose an Alanon sponsor instead of an AA sponsor. I was like, I don't need this shit, you know?
Yeah.
You call a fucking newcomer every day. Fuck off. I'm tired. Besides, there was a point at which in my last round, and it was 5.5 years I was in before I left last time, that I did stop sponsoring women because I began to feel it was deeply unethical.
Yes. Yes.
And
That's
I
why
didn't,
I could
yeah,
never ever speak in a meeting again because I feel like it's unethical. It's harmful.
yes, yes, very, I regret very much that I may have sponsored women and harmed them, produced anxiety for them, made them feel they weren't doing enough, that they were in pain and it was their fault in some way. Although I was always really careful because I had this like this isn't right. Oh, always I had a sense of like this isn't right. I sponsored in a way where I think you would say maybe is trauma informed or isn't like victim blamey. I was never one of those sponsors who was like, you're not being willing, you know. But there were probably times, because the sponsor sponsee relationship is inherently unequal, you know.
Yep.
So I really regret that I made somebody feel like they couldn't get sober and it was their fault potentially. Like, it sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks.
I made amends to all the women that I sponsored for like more than a year. Let's go walk down memory, Alcoholics Anonymous memory lane.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where in your adventures in recovery we actually met. Because I know I was only in San Francisco AA for 4.5 years before I moved overseas. So it was in that time period. In my mind, I'm like, is it 2011? Like, it's
Um,
hard for me to place it.
was I wearing a lot of button downs? Was I in my like really like I'm gonna do everything perfectly phase? I think it was. I used to go to that meeting on Wednesday nights in Laurel Heights. Did I used to see you there? The women's meeting where um
Where or what was the name of it?
well, I know I saw you at Serenity
So
Seekers.
Monday night Serenity Seekers. I remember you from there. I remember I went there one time and I was the speaker at that meeting, and I remember we talked afterwards, and I think that's where I got your number.
Okay, yeah. I think I thought you were amazing and I was like, she's so beautiful. Like she's
I was
just
AA cheerleader. I was
so much.
drunk on the
So much.
Kool-Aid.
So much. And I think
Yay, AA.
but I remember that, and because you're one of the people that I sort of clocked as like she's all the fucking way in, all the way in, like, and and you sort of save these people in your memories of like, oh, she's really doing it right, like she's righteous, and I related to that because I was also revered in a way. And I shouldn't say that about myself, but in AA where you're one of those people that women always ask to, will you sponsor me? Will you speak at this meeting? You know, that you're always called on. Like, when you get a certain level of notoriety in AA.
The more you abandon yourself, the more you get
Totally.
loved. The more that you aren't there, the more that the ideology is there, the more
Yeah.
popular you are. I didn't know I was totally brainwashed back then, but
Yeah, in a way, yeah. The more you submit yourself, the more power or influence you gain in AA, I would say. Yeah.
so 2011, maybe 2012 is when I would have been going to
Right.
Serenity Seekers.
Yeah, I think that was about it. 2011 was probably prime time for me.
In
Um,
2010, I was filled with panic and anxiety. I would not have been like a speaker that anybody would have come up to after a meeting. Like I was like in the
okay.
corner crying in snot as the burning desire. Like I was just like
Oh my God.
so dysregulated and so physically uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay. And then you moved to Bali, and I remember just, always following you on social media, and you were living your best life in Bali, and I was like, oh, the program works. It's incredible, you know? And I went off and moved to Atlanta and got married to like literally, oh my God. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But yes, it was a long time ago, and then I remember seeing you, I think, on a meeting at Serenity Seekers during COVID on a Zoom. And I hadn't seen you in years. Is that possible? No, I feel
You
like I
know
saw
what?
you.
I only went to two meetings in the pandemic. I've only been to two Zoom meetings in my life.
Whoa, okay,
The first one was it was a Bali's women meeting and I was the speaker at it. And after that meeting, I quit AA.
okay,
And that was April 6, 2020. And then I went to one more meeting, and that was even though I quit AA, I was so curious about this meeting from when we were, newcomers in San Francisco AA. It was called like the 10 plus meeting or 10 years
oh
beyond meeting.
yeah,
And
yes,
you have to have 10 years of sobriety to go to the meeting. So when I turned 11, the September after I left, I went to that 10-year plus meeting just to kind of see what do the 10-year plus people talk about, because I was 11 then. And I went and I saw some people that I recognized. I saw somebody who got sober like 2 weeks after me that I knew from 2009, and I just heard everybody and I was like, this is like the most depressing thing I've ever been a
yeah,
part of.
totally,
You're like 35 years sober
yeah,
and you're complaining about like a like it didn't even make any sense to me. I'm like, this doesn't sound like wellness. Like nobody here has what I want. What is this?
yes, yes,
This glorious 10 plus meeting. I'm like, this is a shit show. I was like, I'm good.
totally. It is. I don't know. I look at it now. My mom used to always say this because my mom, she wouldn't care. I had family members, a lot of family members who had entered recovery in AA in my family, and none of us are still in. Some people stayed sober, some people didn't. But my mom, when I was in the middle of AA, I used to look at her and be like, "Why don't you stay in meetings? Like, why don't you come to a meeting with me?" Like what I would be
Recruit,
like if
recruit,
she
recruit,
just would have,
recruit.
yeah, if she just would have stayed, our lives would have been different, or she would have been happier or whatever the fuck. But she would say to me, "I don't think it's an achievement that people who are 20 years sober still go to meetings. That doesn't seem right." you know she's like, "I don't think that's the goal. Like, don't you want to go back and live your life?" And I do agree now. Yes, God forbid you are, very solid in your sobriety, have no thoughts of drinking, and are still trudging off to meetings because you believe you're sick and will die if you don't. It's like, so shit.
Yeah, but it's like they believe I believed I would die if I didn't, but I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking that I am being good. I am one with God. I am being a sober superstar. I'm
Sure,
being of service. So I'm kind of like high off of my own. I'm of service and I'm doing it right and doing it good. But underneath that, I'm not thinking if I don't do this, I'll die. I'm thinking like I'm getting like self esteem off of it. I'm getting
sure.
like dopamine or whatever.
Yes, yes, it's both, right. Yeah. Yeah, and meetings do make you feel so good. And I haven't really delved into what's that like dopamine loop of when you go
Yeah.
into it, you go and you feel shit, you feel terrible. 1 hour later, you're like complete
Yeah.
emotional, physiological change. I mean,
Yeah.
that's quite remarkable, you
Yeah.
know?
I totally dove deep into all of this and the science, and I looked at what was the daily reprieve, because for me, I know a lot of people, and anybody listening or watching, not everybody obviously had a daily reprieve. Some of it was just they always felt shit. But for me, I did get a daily reprieve. I think only once or twice I left a meeting feeling worse. I usually felt better unless something
Mm,
really disastrous happened in the meeting. And I looked at it as, so I was getting oxytocin from feeling connected to
right.
people. I was getting dopamine if I shared, or I was getting serotonin. I was getting like all of the chemicals I
Yep.
was getting that were feeling good, and I was getting regulated, co regulated,
Yes.
feeling seen, feeling heard. Even if I'm not speaking, I'm feeling heard because someone's sharing my story, or
Mm,
I'm sharing because, like in Bali, there were certain meetings, there was only like 2 meetings a day, the morning and the night one, right? And so, because it's a very small fellowship. And so, if the rehab had dropped everybody off at that meeting, there were certain meetings that the rehab came to. And so, if it was all newcomers in there, like half the meeting was newcomers, which would be the case, then I would share what I felt when I was a newcomer in rehab. So I'm like super in empathy vibes, feeling like I'm like
yes.
really helping
Yes.
them. So all of that chemical cocktail is making me feel a type of way. And it was the daily reprieve, but really I'm feeling connected. I'm feeling useful. I'm feeling like these things that are not required are not only coming from AA, they can come
Mm,
from life, and they're also not required in order to survive, like to
hmm.
survive my fatal progressive disease, right?
Right. The endorphins, the anticipatory anxiety before you share, and then the endorphins once it is done. Like, yeah, for
The whole,
sure. It's
yeah,
so
the
wild.
heart racing, freaking out, and
Yes,
then you
yes,
talk, and in Bali
yeah.
you
And
just
then there's
speak.
praise. It's like it's drugs, literally. Yeah, totally.
I
You make
really got
somebody
a lot out of your
laugh.
share.
Oh God. I mean, I lived for it. It's embarrassing to admit, but like making the room laugh, and I made the room laugh. Like that was what I sought to do, was to bring humor to the room. That was a way I tried to be of service, was like to bring some levity to something that's so dark. And in achieving that, yeah, I always felt so good. And it was worth making the room laugh at my
Yeah.
expense usually, because it's always a joke about myself. But yeah, anyways, so that's fascinating.
There is a tremendous loss. It's a tremendous loss for a lot of us when we leave, especially if we enjoyed it or got something out of it or had connections there. Not everybody there actually was connected. Some people were always shunned inside AA, right? Maybe they were critical thinkers or different in some way or
Hmm.
not compliant or something like that. But for me, yeah, losing the daily reprieve was difficult and very dysregulating to leave and to figure out
Yes.
how to regulate myself. And actually heal, because I look at it now, this daily reprieve that I was getting from speaking in the meeting, from knowing things, from helping people, from feeling seen by hearing other people's stories, all of that, none of that is like bad inherently, but that it was medicating. Still, it was medication, just like alcohol was medication. So alcohol was self-medication, Alcoholics Anonymous was self-medication. So when I left, it was like, let me get down to business and like actually like fully heal my nervous system, because it wasn't fully healing in AA because I was still getting this daily dose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have made more progress in the last 2 years. What am I saying? Almost 3 years in terms of my physiological uh, regulation and my just overall stability emotionally and mentally. It just really, I mean, there are many reasons why that is the case, but I wanted to say I really sympathize, because when you do leave, one day you're in, one day you're out, which was my experience in 2016, it's incredibly disorienting and destabilizing. At a minimum, just what do you do those 5 nights a week that you're going to meetings? Nobody's texting you, you're not texting with 10, 12 friends every, it's yeah, you feel so incredibly lost, so lost. I'm really glad that that wasn't my experience the last time. I just stopped going and moved to Colorado and lived with, some extended family for a while, and had all been in and then out of AA, so it was like a very soft landing. But I very vividly remember how hard it was to see a path forward outside of AA when everything was about AA before. Who do you call? When am I praying now? Am I not praying? I know all the prayers. They're in my head every morning I wake up. The morning prayer, I got you. Like, all, I don't know. Yeah, it's a chasm.
I know, I call it like the after recovery void. You're just dropped into this void where you have like no friends, no
Yeah.
identity, no insurance that you're even going to survive. You think you might die. Well, I believe that at least. Like, how do you walk out? How do you leave a group that says you're going to die if you leave? Like it's so I'm curious, what helped you the most? I mean, I know you weren't like in as deep as I was when you left finally or ultimately, but what helped you the most leave like for good?
It must have been just what helped me the most. I just knew. I had known all along. I just known along that this was kind of a racket, but I didn't care because the results were good, you know? Um, and there were things I loved about AA, and I loved my friends and people in the rooms. Obviously, like we love all of the things that we love about it. We love the connection. We love the, you know, reprieve. We love the prayer. We love the ritual, right? We love the humor. But I just wasn't buying it, man. I just, I know a lot about trauma. I've done a lot of trauma recovery. This is not trauma informed. Uh, I believe one thing that really struck me is like this idea that you have this confession, this culture of confession, right? Like you have to confess everything. You're constantly in this loop of shame. I had this bad feeling, or I told a small lie, or I haven't been. And then having to constantly divulge that information to a sponsor or to somebody else, for that second time around, that 5 years that I was back, I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm entitled to privacy. I am entitled to privacy. There are things that I can keep to myself and process myself, or with the therapist, or with someone else that I feel like it, but I'm not giving you everything again. So I guess this is a long way to say I was ready to leave. And I think I had set my program up in a way that if I wanted to leave again, it wouldn't cost me so much. Um, Particularly with friends, I will say it took me a few years back to allow women to be friends with me. And I never, I mostly was friends with dudes my last, my last round, that 5 years, because I didn't trust women in AA anymore. So I think it's a weird, mine is not a typical story. I set myself up in a way where I could unravel quickly and easily if I needed to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's me planning ahead, knowing that I think this is kind of bullshit. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like the benefits started not outweighing the costs.
It's like if you just went through this process where you just took the blinders off and then you went back and then say you went back. But you know everything you know now. And so the reason you're back is because maybe you just shit out of luck. Like you just drank and it didn't go well, or you just bought too much cocaine and it didn't go well. Like there was some time, like when I exited in my fury, it wasn't like, oh, I'm fine. I was like, no, I'm getting fucked up. We're gonna party, you know. I got this stupid tattoo. I was like, oh, if I'm not gonna be in AA anymore, I'm gonna go be a yoga teacher. I hate yoga. Like I went through like a full identity collapse and I was like partying hard. So when I came back, I was defeated. And I had the AA in my head and I was like, I've got to get sober again. It was a necessity. And so I was like, I know what I need to do. I know I need commitments. I know I got to show up. I know I need to I know I need to sponsor people. But I still had everything that you know in my head. And so you can't do it ever. You can't do it the same again. And I always knew I don't want to do this forever, but I've got to do this right
Yeah.
now. So when I was ready to go, then I was like, you can hold both. The cognitive dissonance is like, we're like PhD level cognitive. I can hold both. I don't believe
Yeah.
this shit. I'm going to do it with everything in my body. You know what? Does
Yeah.
that make sense at all?
It does. And honestly, I wish that's the way it was for everybody. I really do, because what I'm hearing is informed consent. You knew it was shit, but you knew that you were going to get a benefit out of it, likely that you wanted or needed or whatever, and you wanted to go that route. So you consciously chose to walk in shit to mine for gold. And I wish, to me, that's informed consent. You were
Mm.
informed and you
Mm.
agreed and you went. And I wish that was like all of us go to AA knowing it's shit, but knowing that there is some gold in the shit so that we can truly take what we want and leave the rest. I couldn't leave the rest when I was told, rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed her path. Half measures of failed is nothing. You're going to die if you don't do everything, basically. So, and I was always told there's a huge difference. There's a big difference between 19 out of 20 amends and 20 out of 20 amends. So I was preached this or proselytized, indoctrinated into this like perfection of AA
Mm.
was how I was going, it was tied to my survival. So,
Yes.
but the way that you did it the last time, I wish that was the standard. I wish that was the common recovery narrative, like globally, was yeah, this way comes with a lot of harm. And there is some benefits for some people, but just know what it is. Just like if you're going to get if you're going to have a risky surgery, like I had a family member who decades ago had a surgery that there was a chance of death. They knew that when they went in. We all prepared emotionally in case this was the end, right? So we knew when they went in that there was informed consent on the risks of the treatment. So it sounds like you had informed consent on the risks of the treatment, and I think that's brilliant, and I wish it was like that for everybody.
That is so, yes, your analysis is spot on, 100%. I've fully absorbed what you mean by informed consent in this regard. Yes. I went back and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do an H and I. Nope. No, I'm not going to do all this weird fellowship with you people out in the East Bay. No, thank you. Um, no, I'm not going to be friendly to every newcomer. That person's weird. I'm not going to be nice. There was so much. I just was like, no, I'm not going to tell you everything either. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So I yeah, so I didn't leave with any resentment because I knew exactly what I was getting into, and I had no fear about leaving this time, because I didn't leave and stay in an environment where, oh no, I'm not going to go to the meeting every night. I'm not, my friends are going to reject me. I was like, no, I'm just leaving the state. I'm not going to. It was so, yeah, you're so right. I wish we could just tell a newcomer, hey, we're going to try to indoctrinate you, and you're going to live in basically a constant ocean of shame and self-flagellation because you're never going to really do enough because what I'm going to ask of you is totally unreasonable. I'm going to tell you to go. I would never do this, but people being told 90 and 90, like, it's so unrealistic. And then we make them feel bad for not, like, come on. That's so unreasonable. So, yes, I wish that we didn't groom newcomers the way that we do. And, little by little, right? And then we raise the bar and we raise the bar and we raise the bar. It's like, yeah, it's
Right.
totally unethical. These people come with trauma, they come with outside issues. How am I making somebody write a 4-step down and tell me I'm not a professional? The things that we've heard in 4 steps. How I am not qualified, and I know we helped people, but that's like, in what world is this happening? It's astounding.
The thing that keeps coming into my head is it's 2025. We deserve better. It just feels like, don't we know enough about the brain now that we don't have to go by opinions from 100 years ago? We can go by science today. And yes,
Yeah.
science is always evolving, but it's evolved a lot since the doctor had an opinion. There's literally zero science in AA. Zero.
I mean, unless you look at things like, what does Gabor Mate say? Is that, I mean, that connection is the opposite of addiction, right? That there is a sign, there's evidence to support the idea that connection is a viable treatment for addiction, which makes total sense.
Right.
But yes, but the way that AA has been implemented is just as dysfunctional as any faith, any
I know.
religious text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's a blanket sentence that is that connection is the opposite of addiction, which is an idea, right? It's not a fact, but
Yes.
but I
Sure.
get that because there's a biochemical experience that happens during connection because we're
Yes.
we're wired for it. There's the empathy. There's I'm feeling good right now talking to you. It's a vibe. I'm getting a biochemical experience from connecting with you on this and hearing your story, right? So that's real. But to say that AA is good because it provides connection, that's like joining Charlie Manson's Helter Skelter group is good because there's connection, or going to Jonestown and partying it up, get drinking the Kool-Aid is good because there's connection. It's like, yeah, but there's non-harmful connection. There's harmful
Yes.
connection. So, and there's non-harmful connection. So it should really be clarified. I'm like thinking on the spot right now. Non-harmful connection is a great alternative to addiction or solution or healing from addiction, not just connection. Because haven't you connected with some wild ass mofos in your life? And
Yeah.
that's not good for like healing.
Oh my God. I mean, that's a great. I know we're talking about the 12 steps. We're talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, but these abuses happen all across all of the 12-step programs. It's not just AA, obviously, right? Some of the worst for me was Al-Anon. Some of the
Really?
worst. Yeah. Um, you know, Al-Anon kept me in a extraordinarily abusive relationship for 6 years because I was I thought I was so dysfunctional that if I achieved this level of perfection, somehow the relationship would, that I would do it right enough. I would do it right enough, if I continued to do 4 steps and be patient and stop looking at how selfish I was and self-seeking. and all of my fears, and terrible things would happen, and then I would just inventory them and send them to my sponsor and send them to my sponsor, and it just sort of co-signed me staying in a fucking nightmare situation because I thought I saw my part in it.
Yeah.
It's that's some of the worst shit.
Oh, yeah. I really, really feel that. I
Yeah.
think that's so relatable. And I think that's a lot of us. That we're so busy trying to clean up our side of the street that we don't realize that the other side of the street is a dumpster fire and it's burning us.
Yeah. Yep. Or even if I did, which I did, I had so much shame and guilt from AA, and sort of my perceived wrongs in this situation, that when I applied Alanon to it, it was I'm a piece of shit. That I understand why they're treating me this way. I have to do better. If I'm more patient, if I'm more kind, if I'm more loving, if I'm more understanding, if I look at my part constantly, then if I can be good enough, if I'm good enough, like
Yeah.
not just like good person, but like if I behave long enough, then I will, you know? And there's nothing in AA or Al-Anon that's like tell that person to fuck off ever, you know? Nobody ever tells us like they're being an asshole. It's like, well, what's your part? For women, that's so dangerous. And I mean, that's a whole other thing is the way that the experience of AA for women in particular. I never bought this idea that we're inherently selfish. I'm like, no, actually, we're like pretty selfless. But that's how you trained us to be for thousands of years. What are we talking about? You know? It's so ridiculous. The caretaking that we do. Okay, well, caretaking is selfish. Is it? Fuck off. What? Again, like we were oppressed for thousands of years. You told us to be like what? There's no context. It was for men. They made it for men. I mean, now I'm just on a tirade and a rant, but your thoughts on this?
Yeah, 100%. The thing that comes to my mind right now, and I have to like hold in my AA Kirsten and just like hug her because it's so like heartbreaking to think about. But I actually made amends to, in the context of a situation where I was sexually assaulted, where I was raped, for my reaction, for my extreme emotional reaction and hyperventilating and dry vomiting and just like my extreme reaction to that situation. I called up somebody like, I don't know, like 10 years later, but like when I was in AA and apologized for how maybe my reaction made them uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I have a part? Like, I just feel like maybe this was what Bill needed. Bill needed a cult religion to get him so that he could stop drinking. Love it for you, Bill. Really, I love it for you. But you were a man who was getting sober in the 1930s, who had all of the privileges because you married somebody who was from wealth. And so you were able to afford to go to the town's hospital, which was very expensive. You were able to do a lot of things and you were able to, I mean, they had their struggles, obviously, and obviously Bill did. But maybe what you needed was your ego to be humbled. Maybe you needed humility constantly. I think a lot of us got there having needed to pick our self-esteem up and needed to be built up, not torn down. AA
Yes.
tears you down.
Mm-hmm.
If you actually go through the indoctrination process or the 90 and 90 indoctrination boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to be lifted up. I needed to be told that, like, if it feels wrong, it is wrong. You can trust yourself. You can say no. Like, I needed to learn boundaries in the beginning. I didn't need to learn how to say yes to everything.
Mm. Yep. Um, that's a horrible experience you had, by the way. A very dear friend of mine was it was suggested to her that she should make amends to her stepfather who sexually abused her. And she did. Yeah. So, I mean, these are shocking stories that are so common. They're just
Common.
common practice.
Common. That's why I still share some of it, because I feel like sometimes when you hear somebody share something, like if you're listening or watching now and you went through like a traumatic amends, there's a lot of us who are like processing that afterwards. I had a lot of grief around that specifically when I left AA. I felt very angry, very betrayed, at my sponsor for even telling me that I needed to do that. And then me
Insane.
feeling like I have to do what this person says.
Or
And
then
then
what?
mortified that if I don't do what somebody else says, that somebody else knows better for me and I have to
Hmm.
betray myself so that I could obey them. Like even processing that was like a whole unpacking the deprogramming from AA. It was like, oh, whoa, there is a lot here. It's not one thing, it's like literally everything. Plus, going through okay, I don't believe that it's actually a disease. I don't believe that it's a fatal progressive. Yeah, sure, my drinking got worse over time, but I've learned with the brain there's reasons why that are not about anything doing push-ups in any parking lot. And I don't have a spiritual malady. I'm not sick. Go fuck yourself. Like I had to go and take apart all of these things, and then also my very specific like traumas with the 12 steps, but my specific traumas are mine. That's like not even what I ever really talk about. It's it's the ideology itself is harmful. Even
Hmm.
if you weren't, even if you didn't have like even if you weren't preyed upon or something like that, the ideology, believing all that stuff is harmful, I think.
Absolutely, it's harmful. You run on fear and guilt and shame. I mean, just think about those weeks where maybe you'd only made it to two meetings and like the nagging anxiety, that just the floating anxiety or guilt that you'd live with week to week because you hadn't prayed on your knees that morning for a few days. What the Girl, no, nobody's living like that. I mean, this was the realization I had going home to Perth, um, right before I left was nobody is working that hard to be acceptable in some way, you know? No, I don't, I'm the only one in this environment who's spending half of their week trying to be acceptable to AA, you know? It was. But to your other point about Bill, he's a finance bro. Literally, like he would be a meme today. Like he is a finance bro. He would be wearing like a Patagonia vest. I mean, wake up.
They pretended he was a broker.
Yes, you know. Um,
Could you imagine if a finance bro said that religion was the solution to addiction and let's not use any science and let's roll with it today?
I think I think it would be hysterical, and I bet he could sell it if he was a good salesman. You know. I mean, the
Yeah.
the only the one thing is that thank God Bill didn't have a profit motive.
I've said this before. Make Bill a billionaire. I'll wear the shirt. Let Bill be a billionaire. Bill's a billionaire. I'm into billionaire. I'm on team billionaire. And here's why I'm into team billionaire, because I'm all about somebody working their ass off, creating something good and profiting from it. I love it. Profit away. I have no problem with somebody like creating a great service or product or something in the world. Entrepreneurship, it's a vibe. My problem with Bill the billionaire or team billionaire is that he was dishonest. It was deceptive. I have a problem with deception, not with profiting.
Hmm.
Make all the money in the world if you have something that is genuinely good that helps people that we're ready to pay for. But it's deceptive. Also, he did die a millionaire, by the way. It was a book sell pyramids model.
Yes.
And MLM bookselling is an MLM bookselling business.
Yes.
And
Yes.
he took the rights to the big book that was supposed to be for the first 100 members. He actually like if you read the orange papers, that's what it allegedly says, is that it shows they all wrote the book together and then he kind of everyone thinks that he wrote it and then he took the rights for it, and when he died, you can read his will. I read his will. He left 90% of the book royalties to Lois and he left 10% to his mistress. He had a mistress the past like 30 years, but she has the
Right.
disease of Alanon because she has a problem with him. Meanwhile, he's leaving the book royalties that he wasn't supposed to have to his mistress. So currently, in this book selling pyramid, MLM, the mistress's family still gets 10% of the royalties. So they're and I would be fine with all that. Bill, go do what you want. I don't care if you have mistresses. Like, I'm not involved in that. But you lied about it. You conned me into believing baloney and possessed me for 10 years thinking that I was going somewhere, but I'm really banging my head against a wall, feeling like, why isn't this working? Because I'm literally praying away my neurodivergence and that doesn't work. And I'm told it's all alcoholism, which doesn't fucking exist. Okay, sorry, there I go.
No, I mean,
But so I am Bill Billionaire. I'm into it.
yeah, yeah,
Don't Bill Boozle me.
don't Bill. Yes, yes. Anyway, that I that all 12-step programs. So I mean, really, yes, AA and Alanon, all of them. They all pedal in this same madness of just. But I think what you just said earlier about having to break you down,
Mm,
it doesn't work unless they can, right? Like those ones, those newcomers that who come in and they've never been to an AA meeting before, they're totally disoriented, and you can see they think it's weird. Like
mm.
those are the ones that you have to break down. Like this. When one of those they sort of hesitate, they come and ask you to sponsor them, and you can see they don't know anything about it, and you're going to have to get them to sit down and read the book with you and start to submit. And then have you seen the point at which somebody has finally submitted and then the their eyes change? Have you seen a newcomer walk in and then 2 or 3 months later, because they've fully submitted and they're in the steps, their entire energy is different. Their eyes are bright, they're hopeful, they're more animated. It's, I have seen that happen so many times. One day they're a completely different person. What is that?
Religious conversion.
It's, I mean, you have
It's
to
a
have seen it to know what we're talking about. But yeah, it is.
It's a cult pseudo personality or religious conversion. It's like both. It's just how you want to look at it. Do you want to look at the religious aspect of it, or do you want to look at the cult aspect of it? But you have to abandon yourself and take on the cult personality, which is you have to be grateful. You can't be angry. You can't be resentful. The grouch and the brainstorm's not for us. Resentment's the number one offender. So you have to cut off parts of your humanity, and you could only be this part of yourself. And when you can successfully, it's a conversion process. And so you are converted. Well, I was converted into going from atheist to being like all about God, right? So it's a
Mm.
religious conversion process. And also, it is a cult personality because it's not just a religion and it's not just a cult. It's both a religious cult. It's the 12 steps are about connecting with God. Nobody's confused about that, but everyone's confused that that means it's a religion.
Yes. Yeah, it's not a religion. It's not a religion. It's not a religion. It's like
Can you
it's whatever
imagine
could I imagine what?
the cafe down the street from you constantly saying we're not a religion? Like, or if you go to like I don't know the bookstore, they're like we're not a cult. It's like constantly. It's
It's
like
so true. Yes. Yeah. This has been a helpful conversation in that why was it so much easier for me the last round that I did? That 5.5 years, why was it so easy to leave and not have really any regret about it or fear or any it was exactly that informed consent that makes all the difference. The things I could say yes and no to, and the fact that so many women that I sponsored that came into the rooms never had that choice is really disturbing to me. I tried to give them the choice. This is the funny thing though, like because I was doing the program that way, anyone who did work with me in that second round, I was like, "Here's what I suggest. Do what you think is reasonable." It's like, listen, 2, 3 meetings a week, mate, every other day. Like, try that. If you want to call me every day, fine. You probably should for a bit. Tried to sponsor in a way that was like, because I'm participating with informed consent, I'm not gonna make you suffer in the way that I did the previous 10 years. It is different. And my sponsees in that time didn't feel that same level of anxiety. And I know that they would see their newcomer friends with different types of sponsors and 5 meetings a week, call 10 women a fucking day. Like, it's a really different experience. Yeah. I'm so glad that I'm so glad that that came up in particular.
I'm hearing agency.
Yes, yes. I tried to give the women agency that I had bestowed upon myself because I knew what I was walking back into. Yeah.
Yeah. You said you went with an Al Anon sponsor, and at some point it sounds like maybe you divorced Mr. AA and
hmm
had feelings about it or reflections on it afterwards. What would you say was some of the challenges you had with Al Anon or even leaving Al Anon, aside from what you've already shared?
The woman who sponsored me in Alanon for about 8 years is one of my best friends. Both of us left. She is one of my absolute dearest friends, um, and has known me since 2011. So I used to go to Al-Anon meetings with her when I was married, and we were involved in the same sort of offshoot of Al-Anon up in Marin. If you ever went to any of those meetings, incredibly destructive, really just full cult, full blown, shameless indoctrination of people into this Al-Anon sect that was kind of like the what's the group in LA? The big AA
Pacific.
Pacific group. It was like the sister group to the Pacific group. It was called the Westchester Al-Anon group, and they started these meetings up in Marin, and it got really dark, man. I mean, this would be a whole other show, but essentially, my ex-husband's sponsor told him that we needed to take a 60-day break and not communicate with each other for 60 days. And that's really what led to our divorce, is that this man had so much power and influence in our marriage, and my husband was like, absolutely 100, I'm on it. It was insane. And at that point, I'm like, this is so crazy. I can't. I can't respect. I'm I'm not participating in this madness because again, I'm still with my same brain where I'm like I still see when shit is like beyond the fucking pale. So, I mean, that is a whole other thing, is like what happens when you fall into these offshoots of AA because they are around, they
Yeah.
are equally destructive. Leaving Al Anon was, a whole other thing. I stopped going to Al Anon. I had this Al Anon sponsor. She knew I never went to meetings. She allowed me the same agency and grace because she had done the same thing. I found people in AA who were like, yeah, that's fucking bullshit. Let's do it like this because I knew, because I was in there 15 years on and off. So I knew how to like back channel things and be like, I want to do some of this shit, but not all of it. So same deal with Al-Anon. And both of us now have the privilege of being able to talk to each other about our experiences in that crazy group, about the craziness of the 12 steps. Same with my best friend who's no longer in AA. Like there's a whole world of people who have left, and like having connections to them is so important. And this is the fucked thing about when people leave AA, is there's no way for them to connect with each other, and it's so incredibly isolating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I so sympathize that, like, I don't know how you found people. Like, it's almost as though you have to go on social media and be like, did anyone else leave? Like, I'm having a really hard time, you know?
I didn't say anything on the internet until even about being in AA ever until my 5 year anniversary of having left AA. And I wrote a post and I was so scared, like sweating so badly when I hit publish, right? And then I literally, like for the next 48 or 72 hours, I hundreds of DMs, hundreds of comments, like it blew up. Like I was the entire next 72 hours I was just replying to people either in comments or in DMs, voicemails, people from meetings, like everybody came out of the woodwork. I left too, I left too, I left too. And I was just like, "Oh shit, like we're all out here like anonymous, like fuck anonymity." We
Yes.
deserve connection too. We deserve to own our stories, and like we deserve to know we can leave. And if we do, like, have a way to connect, or I don't know, like, it just, something
Was
about it
that
just.
Sorry, was that just earlier this year? Is that what
April.
that
Yeah.
was that? So when I reached out to you, I was one of those people being like,
Yeah.
bro,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm so glad you had that response. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then then there was the people that left AA were very lovely and were like so thirsty for it. And the
Hmm.
people who are still in AA, right? Aren't we? And then the people who were in AA, there was a combination of how they responded. They were either like assholes out the gate, or they were nice, but it was like sugar-coated shit, because it was like
Yes.
nice with suggestions, and then less nice with more suggestions, and then rude with control, and then unfriending me. But at first they were like friendly, and I was like, this doesn't feel right though, because you're friendly as long as I actually comply and stop talking. And then yeah, then slowly my whole friend list on Facebook, like, because it was, I got sober in 2009. So when I started Facebook a couple years before that, some most of my Facebook was like AAs.
Hmm.
Well, maybe half, right? So it just like everyone just started blocking me, unfriending me, shaming me. Like I was like, whoa, y'all are doing. Why the fuck are you on my? Surely my personal Facebook page is my side of the street, right? Nobody gave me an amends. I don't know if anybody inventoried that, but y'all just like, you are the spiritual people. Do you think that you're making your program of spiritual action look good? Like,
Mm.
y'all look fucking crazy. You're literally harassing me, and everyone's like, you're gonna get drunk. I'm like, it's been 5 years. Like, no,
Oh, I
I
know. It's
literally
such
waited.
nonsense. Yes. And
A
I
lot.
drink, by the way. I'm not dead, clearly.
Yeah.
I don't drink the way I did in my 20s. I'm too old. Like, I want to say to some people, mate, like, your body's gonna be too old to tie one on every night.
Mm.
Like, I can't. A few glasses of wine will give me a hangover. Like, it's a totally different ball game. You didn't get well, nothing got worse. It has only gotten better. It's just these are nonsense. It's just some people shouldn't drink. I 100% agree, but I think it would be also really dishonest if I did not say that. But
Yeah.
it has never been the same as the way I drank when I came into AA. And I think most people probably leave and continue on drinking somewhat normally. I don't think everybody's leaving and hanging on to their sobriety. It's very hard.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of people are leaving and are drinking and moderating, or are maybe having, what I've heard from people at least, because I get a lot of DMs and stuff, that every once in a while they'll drink too much and get hungover or do something they regret or whatever. But generally it's going pretty well. And generally they just do it moderately. And
Yes.
that, and or some people are going Sinclair method, which is how I would do it if I was going to drink again. If I choose to drink again, it's going to be with Sinclair method, because I'm interested in the unlearning that your brain goes through Sinclair method. So I would try it that way if I was going to do it, so that it would be, I don't know, maybe that's wisdom, maybe that's still some fear left over from AA.
I've tried that and it was effective, but gone. I was way too, that was like in my 2017, like right after I'd left AA period, and nothing was going to slow me down. But I do recall it being effective if I wasn't just trying to blow myself out of the gates. I also think GLP-1s show a lot of promise in this.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, that's probably something that you want to read about for sure. This is definitely your analytical mind will have a field day with how GLP-1s are being applied to addiction. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Care to say a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I'm a freak, right? Like, I'll take anything. So I've taken GLP-1s. So, and I'm an asshole. So I lie about my weight and I'm like, hey, give me those drugs. So let's see what this is about. Um, so I've done the jabs, and they completely neutralize your desire for food. So if you are like someone who like,
Oh.
yeah, like around my cycle, I'm like, I want to eat 12 pizzas. Like I need to eat buffalo wings really bad, and so I would take GLP-1s. I would do, the semaglutide and any sort of nagging, compulsive desire for food was gone, gone, gone. You're just indifferent. You're just at peace with it. You're like, I'm hungry now. I will eat. I don't need any more than this food. And so when I did that round last year, I did like maybe 10 weeks. I wanted to jewel less. Like I still have a nicotine situation to attend to, but I didn't find myself reaching for my jewel. I didn't want to overshop online. Like everything kind of softens.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be incredible. But then, of course, like my next thought when I think about those things is like, well, poor, what are these people in AA going to do? Like at some point, something's going to make a dent, and people are going to go, I'm going to do that instead of programming my mind and committing
Yeah.
to a life. Yeah.
That's why I think these conversations are so helpful because Hollywood is still very high on the propaganda. Like we had
Mm,
Brad Pitt a couple months ago talking about AA is the way. Lots of celebrities are talking about AA as the way. If you watch a movie or a TV show and they talk about sobriety, they're either explicitly saying AA or they're talking about AA anonymously, though, and they're talking about meetings and steps and all that without actually saying AA. There's rarely, if ever, are they talking about like smart recovery or naltrexone or a different methodology. AA is still like the propaganda top piece, right? We don't have celebrities coming out and saying smart recovery was amazing.
yeah.
Well, maybe, but I've never seen it. I've only seen celebrities, media, Hollywood promoting Alcoholics Anonymous. And so these kinds of conversations I think are so necessary so that people realize that like yes, some of us leave and it's okay and we get proper help like therapy or we decide that we're going to use naltrexone or GLP-1s or whatever it's called.
Mm,
Or also when I was learning about naltrexone, it plugs into essentially it lessens the rewards that you feel
yes.
neurologically, right, for alcohol, but also for food. I had a family member that was prescribed naltrexone for weight loss. And it turned out when this family member was using naltrexone for weight loss, they went down to drinking half as many beers a week as they normally
Hmm.
do. And they realized this, they weren't aware of why until I learned about naltrexone and talked to them about it. And then we kind of had the epiphany together. But they would normally buy like a, I don't know, like a whatever cans of beers come in. I don't, is that 20 beers? Whatever it is, right? A
Yeah.
box of beer, however many are in there. And that they started buying them every other week instead of every week. And that was the time period that they were on naltrexone for weight loss. But so saying GLP-1s also work for reducing alcohol intake. That makes sense to me just from what I already understand about how naltrexone works.
Yeah, yeah. I think naltrexone. I did so much research on the Sinclair method in 2017 when I tried that, and yeah, it was. I definitely felt the feeling neutral about alcohol. Um, it was interesting. It's it's a very common method in Scandinavia, is it not?
Yeah,
Yeah, sort of
I
like
think
the
it's,
gold standard. I thought over there.
yeah, it's from there. Yeah.
Oh right,
So
okay.
are you doing Sinclair method now?
No. No, I'm just winging it. It's been a year. So I didn't drink until about 1 year ago. And I guess I had left in January of 2023. So end of 2024 is when I had my first drink after 5.5 years, almost, or maybe almost 6 years, 5.5 years. And I guess there were nerves about that. I mean, I guess I probably would have still said a year and a half ago, I hope I never drink again or I never want to drink again. And your mind changes. I mean, it's okay for you to change your mind. That's the good news. Um, it might have carried more risk this time because I don't think if it was a problem, I would have gone back to AA. I don't think I'd be able to. But then I guess maybe I'd do GLP once. Who knows? Um, but yeah, it's been a year. And for sure, like your friend said, that I've had some hangovers that have been shocking. But I haven't tried to jump out of a moving vehicle. I haven't tried to fight a man physically, like these things that happened in my 20s. I have not, made terrorist threats on a plane. That was one of my best AA stories. That happened in like 2009. So yeah, none of this there's been very little consequence. No consequence to this. I don't drive. I don't like do anything. And here I am already trying to be like, I'm not an alcoholic. You know what I mean? But that, like, of course, there's this panic always of like, there's always going to be that fear that I have alcoholism, no matter how normal it is or how uninterested I might be in drinking. I'm always going to struggle with this idea that I have it. And that's a bit shit, I think.
You might change your mind. I just heard you about a minute ago saying that you can change your mind. I don't
Yeah,
believe what you're saying personally, and I used to. So that's why I'm throwing out you might change your mind about that. The way that I look at it now, ever since getting diagnosed or assessed as ADHD, I'm like, oh, that's what the fuckery is happening in my brain. I have a little bit less dopamine than the average typical person, the so-called fucking normies,
mm,
and so that I might be more prone to seeking it in ways that might become such a habit that they become formed into what's known as like an addiction, whether that's I don't know, people get addicted to shopping, eating, like all sorts of different things, right? So I did with cigarettes. I had a cigarette addiction. I had a, alcohol addiction. And so I might have a vulnerability there because of, and I've had genetic testing done. I've had it done for my family members and I can see where it comes from in my parent, And so I'm like, oh, okay. So that feels real to me. That's not alcoholism because my belief is that we can all become addicted. It is a thing that happens to a human brain. You
absolutely.
put enough of a substance in and that brain can become dependent upon that substance physically, emotionally, psychologically, whatever. But because of my what's known as ADHD and a dopamine so-called dopamine deficiency, I'm going to be looking for dopamine whether it's a daily reprieve at AA, whether it's from alcohol, a cigarette or something else, right?
Yeah,
And so I can be mindful of that and I could then purposely seek out how to get my dopamine needs met in healthier ways. For me, I have found the number one best way for my brain to do that is through purpose. So when I'm doing things that feel very purpose driven for me, like actually this conversation right here is like a big dopamine boost for me, I'm in my purpose. So I am getting my fill from my purpose. So if I have a deficiency, I'm giving myself the nutrient that it needs in a way that actually is life affirming versus destructive. So that's what I've taken it to be. I don't believe in alcoholism. I think it's an antiquated term. You cannot be diagnosed alcoholic or
mm,
it's not an actual medical term and hasn't been for decades in the United States. It's alcohol
yes,
use disorder. And
yes.
alcohol use disorder is based upon how much you actually drink in a week and what it looks like. And if you haven't even drank in the past 12 months, you no longer qualify for alcohol use disorder. The alcoholism is, to me, it's a mythology that Bill like did heavy propaganda on. You repeat something enough, people start to believe it, and everyone starts to believe it, then it's like locked into society and culture. But when Bill says alcoholism, he's not just talking about you drinking, he's talking about you have a spiritual malady. Well, why the
Mm.
fuck did he need to sell us on a spiritual malady? Because he's trying to sell God as the solution. So if you're spiritually sick, then you need my spiritual solution. Oh, there's a physical allergy. So all of his ideology rests on this thing that alcoholism is the problem and he sells the only solution for it. Not only that, he's positioned normal human things like even ADHD and autism and things that they didn't know about then, but things like being depressed or anxious or restless, irritable, and discontented. He's branded like normal human experiences as
Hmm.
untreated alcoholism. So if you're a human being a human, or even a divergent human being a human, that's all branded as untreated alcoholism, and he's selling the only cure for it. I don't even believe in alcoholism. The whole thing is a fucking con job, in my view. I'm not inviting anybody else to take on my beliefs, not at all. But all I'm saying is you just said you can change your mind, so maybe that does change. It changed for me.
Yes, I mean it's both, right? There's that fear part. There's the part that, I'm very into parts theory. There's the part of me that's like,
Oh,
that's nonsense. you know? And then there's the part that's like, but what if? What if you're gonna have to come back? Like, what if it all falls apart? What if you, you know? And that's okay for now because it's been a year. It's fine. Um, but with that, I also have ADHD. I am treated for ADHD. Um, thank God, or I wouldn't be able to function at my job. I would not be able to open a single piece of mail. Um, but yes, that dopamine loop, but I look at that constantly all day for me. My brain is constantly scavenging for dopamine but thank you for talking about purpose because I can't I'm like, do I need a hobby? I don't like to I can't stick, I said to somebody this morning that I was doing this podcast and I was saying, I think for 15 years of my life, the AA was you know, I don't have any hobbies because I spent most of my time for 15 years building everything around AA. All of my spare time, all of my mental energy, studying the books, like not just one book. Like I can quote the 12, I can quote Courage to all of the daily readers. I can quote the big book in chunks, like, you know, sponsoring women, being sponsored, two different programs, three at one point. Where the fuck was I supposed to develop any interest or hobbies and find dopamine elsewhere? And I still don't know. These are sort of the legacy of AA that I live with is I'm still sort of at a loss of what to do with myself sometimes.
Yeah,
Like, what do I want to become a woodworker? I mean, I think about these things. I'm like, do I want to cross stitch? Like, what's the play? You know?
totally. I think that is so relatable. I hear that all the time.
Mm,
Because alcohol was the hobby for sure. My hobby was
yes.
drinking, and then Alcoholics Anonymous is the hobby, and then it's like, and maybe there's a few other things, but then it's like it's a tremendous loss to go to like, oh, if I'm not drinking problematically and I'm not obsessing over Alcoholics Anonymous, what do I do with all this
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. And I'm not in like a deeply dysfunctional relationship that is equally I'm obsessed with. Um, oh man, I mean that's a whole other topic, right? Is like
Yeah.
the rewards of these bad relationships. Wow, that's a whole thing. But yes, thank you for sharing that because I do feel I have a lot of shame around like, oh, I should have interests, right?
Well, and maybe it's not about finding your interests, maybe it's about noticing your interests.
Mm,
Where does your attention naturally go? What lights you up naturally? Just what is it? Like if you just, if what for me it's like when I pay attention to when I'm naturally feeling joy, I feel like that's kind of like as like now that I understand ADHD, it's like my life works best when I don't try to force an interest, when I just notice an interest. Where do I keep wanting to go to? What do I keep searching for on the internet? Where do I like awaken to what I'm naturally interested in? Like that's what works for me.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to talk more about this, perhaps.
Because yeah, it is a loss to leave the so-called daily reprieve from AA because I was getting regulated from the meetings and the sponsorship and the newcomers and all of that. It was regulating me, it was feeding my dopamine, it was giving me all that. And so yeah, it's figuring out how to get those needs met without it in a way that's not destructive. And I also feel like if a lot of us could do that, if we could find a purpose, the purpose might be reading books that you love. The purpose might be going on nature walks. It doesn't have to be like some like earth shattering, like massive fucking thing. Maybe it's needle pointing, like you said. But if we're getting enough of our dopamines met in a healthy way, or even going to the gym, then I could imagine that drinking would have its place in life without being the main source of
Yeah, of
dopamine.
course.
It's an add-on. It's the side dish or the dessert. It's not the main course because our needs are already getting filled in a healthy way. We've already resolved the trauma or a lot of it. We're not being driven by what we were driven by before because we've settled more. So I definitely think that for a lot of us, drinking moderately once we look at our trauma and some of our underlying things and maybe getting medicated for our neuro differences or whatever's going on with us, we would be in a more stable place where alcohol is an additive to our life instead of a dominator of our life.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm really glad that you're doing this. Really, 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 really grateful. If I wasn't so outside of my mind in 2017, this would have been the route I would have tried to take, a more productive approach to taking a critical look at AA. But instead, I was too busy, yeah, like slamming AA on Facebook and also losing friends and drinking myself into a stupor. It didn't
Wait,
work. I'm in a better spot to do it with you now. Please let me know how else I can help.
yeah, for sure. How were you slamming AA on 2017 on Facebook? Was that in a private group or on your Facebook page?
No, just fully on Facebook in the same way, like orange papers, everything. Like, um, yeah, I was in a rage. I was outraged. I was outraged. I had that same moment of like when you take the blinders off, the fury. I was furious. And then I went back. Isn't that crazy?
No, it's not crazy. I totally get it. I also was very angry when I left. And shout out to anybody who's listening or watching who is currently very angry. Yes, it is safe to be angry. It is safe to be resentful. And that's the appropriate feeling for a lot of us when we
Yeah.
realize we have been conned by a cult religion that took over our life. That anger is the actual appropriate response.
Yeah.
Rage, even. I also felt humiliated. Like, how was I so dumb? How did I, like, completely surrender my will and my life to this cult? Like, what the hell? They were clear about it was surrendering your will as well.
I was really angry. I was really resentful and I was really angry. And oh, there's so much. Look, that bullshit that like that we're gonna love you till you love yourself or rely on the fellowship or if you fuck up in AA, nobody's gonna have your back. I think that was the biggest lesson for me in 2016 or early 2017 when I left was like I fucked up. I was really, really depressed and unpleasant to be around for some months before I drank. My friends were already getting pretty frustrated with me. I was in a dark place. At no point did anybody say, "Can we help you? Like, are you okay?" They just sort of watched me spiral in this big cliquey group of girls that I had created and centered around myself, of course. But when I finally did drink, really, there was no one. Nobody was knocking on the door. The fallacy, like that the fellowship is going to have your back, it's such a lie. Um, Particularly women. I don't know. My experience was that these group, this sort of like group clicky thing that I was very willing to participate when I was fine in was very flimsy. There was
Yeah,
really nothing to that. Yeah.
totally.
Friendships in AA are a fucking ruse, is what I'm saying. Like they really are. Some of my best friends are still in, I have left AA, as I mentioned, or some are in, but that's that they're friendships in AA, it's conditional. It's really conditional.
You have to believe the same in order to be accepted. But they wouldn't say that. We wouldn't say that when we're in there. We don't see that when we're in there.
No, but
Although we kind of know that if somebody leaves, they're dangerous, and we're not going to talk to them. Or
that's right.
yeah,
So
you
when that
can't.
yeah, when I did that, that's what I became. Became a pariah. And I was like, "Oh, really? This is how okay, this is fucked."
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Bali bestie is from Perth. So,
Oh, nice. Yeah, of
and Perth
course.
is kind of it's kind of its own little area with nothing around it, right? You guys
Yes.
are kind of like isolated. So yeah, a lot of my more than half of my like AA life was in Bali with mostly Australians.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
I do remember now the Wednesday women's meeting. Was it upstairs? I'm remembering the window
Yep.
when we sat in a circle. It wasn't chairs in a row in a
Yep.
front. It was in a circle and yeah, I totally remember that meeting.
Yep. There was a really crazy lady there whose name started with L. She's like super militant. Oh man. Just some of those AA fixtures, the ones she would sit in her same seat every single week and sort of like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's so wild to think about. And, I only was going to go to one meeting the night I got out of rehab. And then somebody that I got love bombed like crazy, of course. And I went to the dry dock that night. And one woman said, if you, when I was new, I needed sober friends. If you want to have a coffee tomorrow, let's do. I mean, such a fucking recruitment pitch. And
Yeah.
if you want to have coffee tomorrow, let's do it. Let's just go to the meeting first and we'll have coffee after. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back to this cult religion. I was really clear when I
Wow.
walked in it was a cult religion until they told me we're not a religion, but you need but it's all about God and we're not a cult, but you need the brainwashing, right? So I went with her to the meeting the next day only to have coffee with her afterwards. And she opened up the big book and started reading the preamble to the first edition, all the shit. And it was like, wah, 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 wah. I'm like, and I was just looking at her and it like reminded me of in grade school when I went to my friend's house and all of a sudden the mom brought out all the Jehovah Witnesses Bibles and we were like had to read them and I was like, why are you forcing your book on me? So I kind of like why like so she's reading me the AA book. I'm like, this is giving cult. I got coerced into an indoctrination session that under the guise of it was a sober friendship. It wasn't
That's
a
so
sober
bad.
friendship. Totally. And
That's
so
really so shady. I would never, you probably never did that. I would never do that. But no, these are
no.
tactics. I mean, yeah, that's nuts.
But they genuinely think, they genuinely think they're helping, right? And that they're saving my life. I was 30 days sober when I met her. I was the night I got out of rehab, right? So 31 days sober when we had that little indoctrination coercion session. And she was like 57 days more sober than me. So she was not even 90 days sober yet. And she was already trained to do coerced indoctrination. It gets in fast. The brainwashing goes in for some of us right away. So that now you have these like, you train them up to indoctrinate others like right away. I'm like,
Mm.
bro, she was like 87 days sober and coercing me into an indoctrination session.
That's so upsetting. I was always, God, this is so interesting. I was always super, super skeptical of those people who finished the steps in like 3 months or something and then turned around and sponsored because I had, a really good sponsor. And, it would take us, 9 months or even a year to get through the big book the way that it was suggested. I did the steps with her. And then I would sponsor. But once I was out of the gate, I'd spent that year, right? Like being a perfectionist and learning the big book and quoting the big book. I've read the 12 and 12. I've done all of my step work perfectly. And then I'm like this super desirable sponsor that's like, got this sponsor lineage and we have our own way of doing the fourth step and these really helpful guides. It's so crazy. Just the
Yeah.
judgment that exists in like how you did the steps and how you did the steps and like, oh, you're already sponsoring people? Okay, how many sponsors do you know? Like, it's just so weird. It's just so.
Totally. I
And
was
I
in
used to
a,
still think I was such a good sponsor. Sorry, go ahead.
you probably were.
I think I was great. I think I was
Yeah,
great.
we
I
became
think you
great
were great.
indoctrinator. I was a great indoctrinator. I was
Yeah.
like, I would get up there like a goddamn preacher. I believed it. And I feel like when you believe it, when you embody it, when you are the walking big book, which in some ways I wasn't a big book thumper. I didn't know all the pages and all the, I mean, I went through the book all the time with my sponsees, but I didn't have everything memorized and quoted and stuff. But when you really believe it from the depths of your being, when it's embodied, you are transmitting your belief through your
Hmm.
energy, through your beliefs. It's like you're selling it without even knowing you're selling it because you believe it, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're selling a friend on a good movie or something, but you're
Yeah.
selling them on
Yeah.
this like lifetime sentence to a cult religion.
Yep.
You
Yep.
have to stay forever. I was in a cult within a cult in San Diego. We looked at the book a different way. We did it better than everybody else. We were closer to God than mainstream AA. Mainstream AA, this is like the ideology that this group was in. Mainstream AA is harmful, but we do it right. We do it best. We're closer with God. We have the right way of doing it. I literally got carpal tunnel while doing the big book their way. It was like I mean, it was so much you can't even imagine what this fourth step was like. It was like it was so intense. And yeah, we were spiritually superior. We were like literally we were closer to God than regular AA is what the parroting was. And
Wow.
And but really one of the first things, no, this was when I was 8 years sober, I think, maybe 9 years sober, 8 years sober, and I left at 10. So this was a couple years before I left AA. I had felt like there was this one lady who was like the pinnacle of sobriety to me. She was like who I like, if you want what we have, you do what we do kind of a thing. She was the one who I wanted what she had. I had gone to
Hmm.
San Diego. I'd flown down there. I was dating this guy down there, and I ended up going to a meeting while I was down there. She was the speaker. It was like blew me away. I talked to her after the meeting, and now I know this is called a cult leader because I didn't know I was in a cult at the time or at a cult meeting. But
Hmm.
I go up to her after the meeting, and it was this huge meeting. It was Veterans Day at a veterans center. Like there was so much magic here this night. It was just one of those nights that was electrifying. You know, we get really
Yeah.
high off of these like God heavy miracle shares kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so I go up to her after the meeting and I thank her for a share. I'm like, wow, this is one of the best shares I've ever heard. I like gonna leave here like so high on life, whatever, right? Yada yada. Trained to thank the speaker, which I actually don't think is a bad thing. So then she's like, well, I do the steps a different way than regular AA. That's why I'm so like full of God or whatever she said. I don't remember what she said. So then she's like, I can give you the book. And I was like, okay. Recruiting for the cult within a cult. So I follow her to the parking lot. She opens up her trunk, and it's all the special cult, the specific cult within a cult book way, right?
Whoa.
So she gives me the thing, and she gives it to me. I don't remember if she charged me or not. It might have been for free. She might have charged me. I don't remember. I would have happily paid. She was like on fire, right? Like I want
Yeah.
what she has. I'll buy her book. Like sold, indoctrinated. And then I ended up working the steps that way that they did it in San Diego through one of her sponsees who was in the Bay Area, because I was like, this is right around when I was meeting you, because this was like Veterans Day. It was, you know what, it was, not only was it Veterans Day, it was 2011, so it was 11 11
Oh
11.
wow.
It was
Wow.
like
Wow.
all the vibes,
Wow.
right? And I
Oh
was like, oh my
no.
god. And on
Yeah.
the plane down to that meeting, I was reading the very end of Gabrielle Bernstein's book Spirit Junkie, and
Sure.
the last page,
Classic.
it said something like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I prayed on the plane, let the
Jesus
teacher
Christ.
appear. And then I went to that meeting, and she spoke, and I was like, it's all God.
Yep.
um, so then when I left Bali in, I want to say 2017, and I went to San Diego, and I was in San Diego for 6 months. And while I was down there, I was going to give a talk down there, and it was booked. I was on a road trip, but I had a talk booked, and so I was going to stay there until I did that talk. And then while I was there, I was like, I'm going to go to that fellowship because I remember that lady and the cult within a cult, and they're the special AAs. And so I went to all their meetings, and I'm like, this is so good. I'm like in the depth of the best. And without saying too much, I got to see that I didn't actually want what this woman had. She didn't have what I thought she had.
Hmm.
The one who spoke, and so this was 2017. It was 2011 that she was on fire, electrocuted, and I was like, oh my god, this is the AA that I want. When I actually got to see like how people, the relationships that were happening and what was going on, I'm like, oh, she isn't like a goddess in AA.
Yeah. It's
She's a
disappointing,
she's a
isn't it?
human with a lot of flaws like me, and that really broke something in me with AA, because from seeing her humanity and seeing that she wasn't actually somebody to look up to, there was this really
Mm.
dark side to her, and she was for sure the leader of this group, right? But to see the dark side of her, which by the way we all have, but she was in a very
Sure.
position of power there, I was like, oh, there's literally nobody in any of these rooms that has anything that I want. So I stopped having a
Yes.
sponsor for the last 2 years because I was like, there's literally nobody here that I want what they have. And I was like,
But
what
thank
does that
God.
say about where I am, though? And
Yeah.
then they
Yeah.
say, like, the ISM, the ism in alcoholism is I sponsor myself. And I was like, but I don't want anyone here to tell me what to do because
Yep.
nobody here is doing what I want, I guess.
Yeah, I know, but that's free thinking. Like that's sort of the beginning of your free thinking experience is going, I don't want any of these things. You wouldn't have done that a few years earlier. I don't think, had you been in a place where you didn't like anybody's vibe, you probably just would have picked somebody because of the fear of not having a sponsor. So potentially that so
Yeah.
it starts where it starts, whether it's by accident or because you find yourself somewhere where you're just like, I just can't with these people. Thank God, because if you don't take advantage of those moments where you can get a little bit of separation or a little bit of
Yeah.
autonomy or make a free choice available to yourself, you know, you're at risk of being a lifer. I think it's usually accidental. I think often when people drift.
Yeah, so that was for sure one of my. I wasn't even considering leaving yet, but I was like, oh, there's nobody here that I want to lead me in decisions in my life. So I kind of decided for myself that, okay, I just don't need the sponsor and I'm not really going to talk about it because I know nobody's going to agree with me, but there's literally nobody here. Plus, I went back to Bali where most of the fellowship there, which was I don't know, maybe 80 to 100 people total, but really it was like 40 or 50 or 20 at each meet. I don't know, even less, like small. It was so small.
Mm.
And so most of the people, like 80% of the people, I would say, were like a year or younger because they come to Bali from Australia for rehab. Then a lot of them want to stay and do
Oh,
their big early sobriety in Bali because they have so much fun in Bali rehab. Well, I mean, so much fun in Bali getting sober. They get really tight into the fellowship. And so the majority of Bali AA is like under one. So there literally was like less than a handful of people that had more time than me that were women anyways.
mm.
Like maybe I can think of two people. And
Wow.
I didn't want to work with either of them. So I was like there literally is nobody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that probably would have been the case moving to Colorado anyway, but I'd already decided to leave at that point. I mean, I hadn't had an AA sponsor that I took seriously since 2021. I think I sort of had a sponsor in Oakland, and technically she was my AA sponsor, but I'd already decided for ages I'm just going to work with my Alanon sponsor who I know is not going to um try to indoctrinate me, you
Who
know.
left first?
She did during COVID. Yeah.
Was she how was that when she told you or
I was so in the boat at that point in AA that I mean I love her to death. So I was just like, oh, it just seems like she's really kind of lost her footing. She seems to really be drifting. Like I don't think this dude that she's with is like um good news. I can tell that she doesn't have a solution. You know what I mean? Like there were definitely times I got off the phone from her and I was I could just see it. And it sort of like it was almost like the table had been flipped. I was like, I seem to have a lot more spiritual sobriety right now than she does. Um, and then eventually she's like, I'm just not really going to meetings and I don't think I want to right now. And I was like, I've been there. Cool, I got it. And we probably did. We weren't as close, I'd say, for maybe 6 months or a year or so.
Mhm.
Um, but she went, did she kind of go back? I don't know. She'd be a really interesting person to talk to, actually. Really should chat with her. She's very cool. On the
Yeah.
Al-Anon side, because she experienced all the same stuff we did in that offshoot in Marin. Cult within a cult. I should have been saying it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like a cult within a cult. Yeah, my Bali bestie who's from Perth, she was actually my sponsee for like 5 years.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then
Yes.
and
Yeah,
then
it's amazing.
when I left, she stayed my friend. She had no problems with it, and then she would ask me questions, and I would only offer information when asked. I was not trying to convert anybody out or in or to anything. I was like, fuck trying to make anybody believe what you believe.
Mm.
And she asked me questions and she's like, "Oh, right, totally." So we've been able to maintain our closeness, our friendship, even though I've been out of AA 5.5 years. And she saw the light too. She's like, hmm.
Yeah. I mean, those are precious friendships. I don't know what I would do without Layla
Yeah.
and being able to, and, also my best friend up in Oregon, who, if it ever comes up, we have the same experience where we can be like, can you fucking believe that we, you know?
Yeah, that's why I wish there was a better way for us to realize who's also left because most of us leave anonymously. I mean, it sounds like you kind of gave an announcement in one of those meetings, but
Oh,
most of us
years
leave
ago.
anonymously.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then we don't know who's also out. Like the way that I always felt about it is like, I don't know who's safe. I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
else left. And I just assumed they didn't. And there was one time before I came out of the I left AA closet that I saw an AA member at Costco, and I was fucking weird. I like went the other way, hid and like ducked and like ran and was all like self will run riot. I was like, I can't run into her because if she's going to say, what meetings are you going to? I don't want to do the
Yeah.
cult speak. But now that I'm out of the closet, I'm like, zero fucks given. Like, if you don't already know, I'm gone. You're in a cult.
Yeah. Yeah. I did. Yeah. I just went back to the Bay Area a month or so ago and saw some close friends and one I hadn't spoken to for a couple of years. And I did get those questions. I was like, so why aren't you going, why don't you want to go to meetings? Like, why aren't you doing AA? What's going on? And I explained and he actually was great. He was just like, I
Oh,
totally get it. No, makes sense actually. Cool. And I'm still very good friends with his girlfriend. She's one of my dearest friends. Good friends with him. Um, thank God, because I just wouldn't be, I just, hopefully people have matured that have known me for a long enough time now that I can be shown some respect in making an autonomous choice. But yeah, it doesn't happen often. I think those connections are vital if you want to successfully leave and you don't want to have a complete identity crisis.
yeah, I had an identity crisis and it was
Yeah.
extremely difficult. That's part of what drives my passion to talk about it because I don't want that for other people.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't stay out the first time, right? Like I had to go back. I don't think I saw an alternative for me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Oh my God, this has been amazing. It's been so fun to connect with you and to see you thriving. Like, I'm so happy that you're doing better and that you're out
Thank
of
you.
like the AA ricochet or whatever you want to call it. And that,
Me too.
yeah, I just hear so much like liberation, agency, autonomy. I even love that you're drinking again and you're doing it in a way that's a lot safer and you're making decisions outside of the ideology because it can take a while for a lot of us to get there. And I just love that you're being yourself. I mean, we deserve that, you know? Like it's ridiculous that I even am like thinking this because like it got taken from us though, and so
Right.
I love that you're being you and you're doing rocking you and you're thriving.
Here's another little thing. I'm never going to work on myself ever again. I'm not doing any more work on myself. Guess what? I did 20 years of therapy. I did 15 years of AA. I did 10 years of Alanon. I went to SLA. You tell me I'm in bad relations. We're like, oh, yeah, okay, go to SLA now. For sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. I've done dialectical behavioral therapy. I've done brain spotting. I've done EMDR. I'm not doing anymore. I want to tell people in AA
Mm,
sometimes, I'm like, it's not going to get any better. Leave yourself alone. Like, you're not going to heal your way out of who you are or heal your way out of neurodivergence. Or there are some things about you that you must learn to live with, and it's actually fine. Stop
yeah.
working on yourself. It's a racket. Stop. That's what I want to tell people. It's like, give yourself a fucking break. You
Mm,
know, you're fine. I stopped working on myself, and actually, I'm happier than I have been maybe ever. Yeah, it's cool.
I love that so much. If you could go and tell, I think it's your 2017 self who left but wasn't able to stay out and ended up going back. If you could tell that version of yourself something, what would you tell her?
Oh, yeah, I mean, the first thing I thought of is it's not you, which is so simple. But what I didn't know what I was up against. I really didn't. You know, I thought that the rejection that I experienced and being made a pariah and being ostracized was because I was bad, like a bad person. And it's just the way it was set up. There's no other way it was going to turn out. So yeah, but I carried that for a lot of years, well into my next round of sobriety, you know? But I was set up to fail. You can't. So it was not me. I was up against something much, much bigger in leaving that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard like rule number one of a cult is we're not a cult, and rule number two of a cult is you're wrong. Whatever it is, you're wrong.
Yeah. 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 Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
helpful. Really, really helpful to talk about these things. Yeah.
I like the freedom to be able to just be honest about things that we've repressed for so long because there's this idea that we're supposed to be silenced, anonymous, and that we can't own our story or our truth or even speak into a problem that so many people face because we owe something to the group that we used to be in when we don't.
Right.
We do not owe anybody anything. We are our own beings. I believe that we save ourselves, that no group or no system can save us, that we save
Yes.
ourselves. Yes, we're supported. AA supported me for sure and indoctrinated me, but that I believe that we save ourselves. The power is within us. We're the ones who decide. We're the ones who take the action. And I just feel, yeah, I feel really grateful to have been able to hear your story today. And thank you for sharing it. And I would definitely, if you want to come back on the podcast and talk more about Al Anon or something else, you're totally invited.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I would love to. Um, and and I'm grateful for the opportunity. I would not have talked about this because um I didn't leave with any malice this time. I just left like, well, it's okay. I was preparing to leave for, I'd been preparing. So thank you. It is important. There has to be a space for these conversations to be had. AA is incredibly harmful. You can leave and be fine. And somehow we all need to connect with each other because it's no fucking different from leaving the Church of Latter-day Saints or anything else. It's just as destabilizing. Yeah.
I heard from somebody this week that said leaving AA was harder than losing a loved one, getting a divorce, getting fired. Like all of the life like traumas, that leaving
Hmm.
AA was by far the hardest thing that she ever went through, and that was like so relatable to me.
Yes. Yes. I remember that. Thank God it was easy last time.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening or watching along. And let us know what you think in the comments, what came up for you, what stood out for you, or what's on your mind right now. Remember, it's not so much about what any one individual thinks. This is about us all thinking and all sharing our stories. So I can't wait to read yours in the comments below if you feel inspired to share. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.